So I've started digging to see what we have supporting the house. I'm pretty sure it's just laying on the ground, but I want to see if there are some supports, and then eventually I will dig down, I don't know, maybe 4 feet and go under and put in a foundation and a cellar under there and some beams to support the house and jack it up a bit. In the meantime, the dirt is going over here, and instead of having a deck, gonna flatten that out and put a brick patio. Yeah, I know, there's a new hole. It's confusing, isn't it? There's a big hole here now. Poor wolf. Letting a rogue milkweed grow up in the backyard because the monarchs like them. We got hammered with rain last night. Imagine that. And yeah, it's absolute clay muck in there, so can't work at least this morning on it. We've got double kittens. Look at that. Oh. They need somebody at the intersection right there stopping people from coming through. Like they've got 4 cop cars up there and they need one down here. I'm sorry, Mama, but that deck has to come up too. No, Mama. You want to help? Do you want to help? Yeah? You helping by looking cute? Is that what you're doing? You're going to be the cuteness support team? Oh, Mama, yes. That makes the work a lot easier. Thank you. Thank you, Mama. So I just took the stringer off that was holding the deck up and discovered that the beam that the house is sitting on, which was sitting on the ground, has pretty much rotted. It's gone. What's left of it is so soft that I could put my finger right through it. So yeah, I'm gonna have to take the whole wall apart and redo everything. The floor joists are no longer connected to each other. They're just held together by the floor above them. Fun. On my way into town this morning, I started a new book, which is always an exciting event for me. Even if I really like the book that I just finished, which I did, Out of My Skull, The Psychology of Boredom, review going up on Patreon soon, but got a lot of good stuff out of there. Still, I'm excited to ask new questions, to learn new information, and to go down new rabbit holes. Couldn't see my rabbit holes. They look like this. Anyway, the book that I'm just starting is called The Productive Researcher by Mark Reed. And this book really called out to me because I've been in the midst of an ongoing research and writing project for the better part of 20 years. And if I really think about it, it's been the better part of 35 years. I started this project, this philosopher way of existing back in my teens. So I thought this book could help me navigate my way through an ever-increasing mountain of research. I am absolutely prolific in my research and note-taking, and my thoughts, and my studio upstairs is absolutely covered in writing. I have writing boards everywhere, stacks of them. They're like stone tablets from back in the day, but they're little blackboards, and I have piles of them, and every now and then I will get them out and I will just put them up on the wall and look at them and reshuffle them and add things and make new boards, and I have tens of thousands of recorded audio notes, and I'm always evolving what I'm working on, but I'm not great at producing edited copy. So at this point in the book, he's talking about the three components of a productive research endeavor. You've got motivation, you've got drive, and you've got staying power. And they smack a bit of willpower for me. So the moment I heard that, I was like, uh-oh, maybe there's not a lot in this book for me, because it feels like control. It feels like the will directing oneself towards something and trying to find a way to eliminate distraction and to stay focused and to kind of bear down and get it done. So I think it's important to talk about the nature of willpower and the will before I go any further. If you look at the word will, it comes from a Germanic root, which means to want. It doesn't mean to force, it means to want. In fact, in Swedish, the word for want is vill. So to will something means to want it. So I have a future that I see, and in that future there is something or some version of me that is better than what I have now or what I am now. So when I imagine myself in the future, I see something better that is not currently here. I'm either at a higher social rank, I've accomplished something that's going to improve my status, or I have something that is going to make my life better. I imagine, and I need to bring it into existence. So it's want power. And there is someone that is wanting. And if we look even deeper into the etymology of want and will, we find at the very bottom a sense of lack. There's something missing. The present moment is not complete. I am not complete. I'm unfinished. I haven't yet fully realized myself, or as Maslow would say in his hierarchy of needs, I have not actualized myself, which means that I have an imagined self, but right now it's not real. I haven't engaged in the acts that conform to what I imagine I can do or will do. So I am not self-actualized. I am simply virtualized as a self. So this is something that selves or identities try to do throughout their lives, to make what is inside, the virtual version, how the world should be, how I should be, and then project it onto the world outside to make it real, to reify the self. Very much like Agent Smith in The Matrix. He started as a computer program, but because Neo passed through his code, suddenly the outside world got into the inside virtual world, and Agent Smith said, oh, I don't want to just be stuck inside of a computer. I don't just want to be code. I want to be out there. I want to affect reality. And that's eventually what happens in the trilogy. Agent Smith gets out of the Matrix and is manifest in the real world. His will, his want, his sense that there's something lacking in the Matrix, in the code. It's not enough. There must be more. So, I don't want that for me. I didn't say myself, and I was careful there. I heard myself about to slip off of my tongue, but it's not about myself. It's about me. Me is everything that I am, including my body. And that's a strange thing to say, because there's a part of me that wants to make a distinction. My mind and my body is also included, but that's not actually the way it works. My body, being brain, is what I am. Myself and my thinking are just concepts within me. I am the larger entity. Anyway, I digress, but it's important. So in this book, motivation, drive, and staying power are all about a virtual version of you that's trying to complete a project. I need to be motivated to complete this project. I need to be driven to complete this project. And I need to have the staying power or endurance to see it through. So I'm very, very suspect of this approach. But like all books, I'm going to listen. I'm going to be open-minded because I know there's something that this person can teach me because they are a prolific creator in academia, which is why they wrote the book. And they interviewed a lot of people to compile what is available in this book. So I'm totally open to learning, but at the same time, I want to see if I can take this information and apply it to my more gentle, compassionate approach, so that it's not about an identity that's trying to do something in the world, and that it needs motives, it needs reasons in order to do them. My curiosity, which drives my exercise and even drives my research, I don't need a motive to go over there to the pull-up bar or to the elliptical or to listen to another book. I'm simply curious. I let curiosity pull me into certain areas, and then I let me, my entire being, do the rest. Engage with it, interface with it. And I let my will or identity take a back seat so that it's not trying to control it. Because the moment I try to control it, I limit what's possible. And I also make it unenjoyable. It's hard to be present when you're focusing on what should be here but isn't. I should have muscles and I don't have them yet. Those pull-ups should be easy, but they're not. So when I engage in a pull-up, it's not gonna feel good. Versus curiously touching the bar and just pulling a little bit, just, ooh, there's my scapula. Okay, there's my traps. Ooh, there's my rhomboids. Getting the different muscles engaged, pulling, fooling around until, oh, there we go. And right there it starts to feel uncomfortable. So stop, let go. Let's just explore the motion. Let's explore the load and the tension. Let's not force it because we need something that's not here yet. I don't want that part of me to motivate what I do. I don't want that to be the reason that I train or the reason that I'm researching so that I can become a famous author. I don't want to be driven by my identity. I want to be driven by curiosity. And that drive isn't really about putting your foot on the gas pedal and just using tons of fuel to move forward. It's about using curiosity to be pulled a little bit at a time. And each time you get pulled, and each time something is revealed in the midst of that pull, you get charged up. You don't need to spend fuel because every new thing that you discover lights you up and fills you up and charges you. So that drive, in the sense that most people think of it, really isn't necessary. And as far as staying power is concerned, this is where I have to be the most careful. Because my identity wants to be the guy that never gets old. My identity wants to be the 55-year-old that impresses other 55-year-olds who look at me and say, oh my God, look at him. He's just like a 20-year-old. He hasn't changed in the past 35 years. He's staying with it. His power is not diminishing. And that's the real tricky one for me. I don't want that to be the main driver of what I do. And this is the one that I really have to watch out for because I don't want to compare myself to a younger version of me. This guy's new. This guy's curious. He's exploring. He's doing things totally differently than I did as a youth. And I'm not trying to desperately hold on to that feeling of vitality than I had when I was younger. Also, I don't want to compare myself to other people, kids. Like when I'm going after Strava segments, I have to be so careful not to feel the need to compete with somebody 35 years younger than me. Hopefully, it's about discovering what's possible for my body in the midst of my gentle approach. It's simply a metric to let me know whether or not this gentle approach yields big dividends. And it does. But it's not about Tim desperately holding on to the identity of somebody that will always be fit, always be comparable to those 20-year-olds, that his staying power never diminishes, his candle never blows out. I don't want that because, first of all, it's not real. And at some point soon, my performance is going to drop precipitously. That's coming. But more importantly, I don't want to be holding on to something. I want to be exploring and growing in new ways that are appropriate to whatever it is that I am right now, versus trying to hold on to what I've been. Like, how much longer can I hold on to this fitness lifestyle? I don't want it to be that. So motivation, drive, and staying power, I want them to come from a place of curiosity and not from a place of an identity that's desperately clinging to relevance. Okay, enough of that. I'm going to let go of this camera right now and see what happens. I don't know. I'm curious though. So when I was putting this boot on and trying to cinch it up, I noticed that the laces, which are made out of parachute cord, had basically separated. The outside layer had somehow been severed, and now just the inner core is there, and this crimp no longer works. It doesn't hold the boot tight. It can just move back and forth freely. So I thought, well, what if I put a clamp on it, or what if I put duct tape on it? Can I hold it together? And I haven't tried that yet. So I don't know what to do. These are my winter racing boots. And there's something about how they, see, you can see how the toe kind of goes up there. They're not flat on the bottom. It kind of pulls your toes up, and that puts you in a more aggressive position, but it doesn't feel good for balance. So I'm thinking that I may try a few skis today and tomorrow in these boots to see if I can get used to that position. And if I can't, I'm gonna clamp or duct tape these, and I don't know, I'll bring both to the race and maybe test them out right there with modifications if necessary. But yeah, these were scary at Craftsbury, so I don't know. Here we go. In addition to testing out the boots today, I also wanted to try out a slightly longer pole. I took the grips and straps off of a roller ski set of poles, and I put them on a set of winter racing poles, which are much lighter and easier to break. And that gives me maybe an inch more to weigh down on. So the poles felt okay. The boots felt okay. It's different. I've got to get used to it, but I can see myself working into it. I've got another day to practice in these boots before I decide, and I'll bring both sets to the race. So far, so good. Having dinner at my historical best friend's house. This is his apple and peach orchard. And he's got different kinds of nut trees over there. Behind that shed is a bunch of blueberries. His garden, his log cabin, which he built with local logs. Lots of fruit and veggies. Fun place. A Vermont cabin porch. This is Vermont living.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Like that little cicada sound,
Yep.
kind of? Ah,
Yeah.
we heard one the other night, and someone said, what is that? And I was like, I don't know.
I've been a little bit bummed ever since the roller ski race was canceled a few weeks ago, so I've been on the lookout for other race opportunities. And tomorrow morning, there's one in Brunswick, Maine, which is a 5-hour drive. And I've decided I'm going to do it. There's some good college racers there, and I have a place I can spend the night on the way. So I'm gonna head out now, make the drive to Maine, listen to the book, The Productive Researcher, and hopefully have a fun test of my race fitness tomorrow. Now, I'm really curious as to what I can do. I know I can ski fast now, but how long can I ski fast? We're about to find out. Just stopped for a stretch break in Brattleboro, Vermont, and I thought I would comment on the book that I'm listening to, The Productive Researcher, because I just caught him in a contradiction. And it's confusing when authors don't really think about the bigger picture of what they're sharing. So, in the chapter I just finished, he was talking about the many stories model, which is basically a way of looking at yourself as multiple identity narratives, that we are essentially an identity that is built out of storytelling. We can tell negative stories, we can tell positive stories, we can tell neutral stories, and that can often change depending on the context and the relationships that we're presently in. I have a very different identity story with my family than I do with my athletics or with my clients. So in this many stories method, he's suggesting that you recognize the negative stories that your identity inhabits, that you're collecting negative data points and constructing a story or sense of self that is negative. I'm going to fail, nobody's going to like it, blah, blah, blah. And instead, to look for the positive data points, to collect those and to construct a story that is more empowering and positive. Like, yes, I have done this in the past. Yes, I can do this. Yes, somebody did say that I did a good job last week. Well, number one, we don't always have access to the data points of our life in aggregate. Our brain selects what data points are available to us depending on the identity that we're presently inhabiting, and that is contextual and relational. Certain people bring out a certain version of me. Certain contexts bring out a certain version of me. And when I'm in that particular identity narrative, I have different memories. And I'm not talking about dissociative identity disorder. I'm talking about the normal functioning of a human brain, that in a context where I'm nervous and therefore my identity has a low rank, I believe that I'm going to be found out as an imposter. Well, I don't have access to the memories of me doing a good job there, or at least I have very difficult access to those memories. What my brain is going to load quite readily are the memories of me failing, or the memories of people judging me. Or if I don't have a lot of memories, it's going to load a simulation of my likely failure. This is what is going to happen, not what could happen, but this is what's going to happen. And then we believe it. We take that simulation, that prediction, and we say, that's the truth, and I better not do it because that is what is going to happen. So before I go any further, I'm already questioning this approach of just telling a better, more empowering story with more positive data points, because that's not so easy to do. And in a sense, that's what cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is about. Challenging the stories that you tell, challenging the data points that you're using to construct those stories. And then the therapist will help you find data points that contradict those stories or add to the data set. But this author is suggesting just look at the positive data points. And now I've just moved into a new chapter where he talks about humility, how it's so important to humble yourself in your research and to elevate everybody else on your team and to lower your own rank or status. And identity stories and humility, they don't work together. They're not part of the same world. In fact, in order to be humble, you have to step outside of your identity. The word humble or humility, and even human, comes from the Latin word which means earth. So if you talk to an ecologist, they'll talk about the top layer of soil as the humus, the earth. So a human is someone of the earth. To be humble is to be on the earth. Humility is the recognition that I am just a part of the earth. So to have a positive identity story, which is a fabrication, and it's about imagination, who do I imagine myself to be? What success can I imagine? How do I feel about myself? Versus, I'm not that important. I am just of the earth. That doesn't mean that I don't have value. And it doesn't mean that I can't contribute in a positive and powerful way. It doesn't mean I should feel bad about myself. It just means that I don't really need to embrace my identity, because embracing an identity takes me away from being grounded. It takes me away from the here and now, in the place that we all stand together, the earth. We're all just human. And human means of the earth. The earth created us. We evolved from the materials of the earth. We are the earth. So promoting an identity, promoting humility, he doesn't quite get it. For me, you don't need an empowering identity story. You just need to recognize that any identity story can be disempowering, even the positive ones, because they take you away from the earth, and therefore they set you up for disappointment. They set you up for unmet expectations and frustrations, because you're imagining good things, but you're not present to what's actually happening at ground level. So if we bring ourselves down to the ground and we take appropriate steps, noticing what's in our path and what's around us and the impact of our steps, well, then we're likely to make course corrections very quickly, and we're likely to adapt to the people around us as well, and to our own physical needs, rather than imagining what should be taking place without being present to the person that's taking the steps and the world that the steps are being taken in. So far, this book is kind of going off a cliff, and it's a bit disappointing, but I will press on. And speaking of pressing on, I'm going to start moving again because it's getting hot in here, and I can't take off all my... Yeah, never mind. See ya. What are you doing? What are you doing? Where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going, Demon Eyes? What are you doing in there?
In a time of 27:11, tip ban ordered.
I'm just getting off the highway in New Hampshire and went through a toll booth. And when I went to give the attendant my money, she said, somebody ahead of you paid your toll. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, isn't that cool? Nice people in the world. I stopped to take a break on my way home from Maine to capture and process my thoughts about the race today. I found a shady spot with a cloud overhead. It was brutally hot and sunny at the race, and I've got a little bit of respite from the sun, so I thought I would take advantage of it. It's interesting how different aspects of me are framing the race through different lenses. You've got my identity, and then you've got everything that I am outside of identity. And me outside of an identity is curious and experimental and loves to collect data. So this version of me is saying, wow, what a great experience. And that's really useful feedback or data collection. I can use this to get better. But then you have my identity that's really disappointed that I didn't win the race. 55-year-old man that got back into skiing 2 years ago and doesn't do any hard training. Just has this experimental, random approach to physical engagement. And yet my identity wants to be the winner. It needs to be the winner. And by the way, the kid that won from Blue Hill, Maine, Henry McCourt, one of the best junior skiers in the country, went to the Junior World Championships, I think. Really phenomenal athlete, and he has grown and his technique has improved. So he's quite a bit better now than he was this winter. So this kid is amazing. Remember that name, Henry McCourt, if you follow skiing, because he's one to watch. Anyway, I saw him in the race. I didn't know who he was at the time. I found out after, but watching his technique, I was like, wow, there's a young Simon Kruger skiing out here. He was incredible. In fact, a couple of the college guys too had really good technique. I was blown away by how skilled they were. But Henry, the winner, his technique was flawless. It was something to watch. I stood near the start and observed their technique as they skied away. Some people went out with a really, really high tempo. Others were more measured but strong. So I don't know how to start a race, especially an interval start, one person every 30 seconds. I don't know how much effort to put in. I don't train hard. I don't ski super fast on flat rolling ground, which is what the course was. Very few small hills. So I didn't know how much effort to put in, so I wanted to see what other people were doing. I think my technique was a bit sloppy. I used my racing boots, which I'm not quite used to yet, so it was hard for me to really stand solidly and firmly on the ski. I felt a little wobbly, especially on the left side. So there were times when my speed was more than I could manage. It wasn't that my fitness couldn't maintain the speed, it's that my balance, I was struggling to keep balance at that high speed. I think my average pace was somewhere under 4 minutes and 20 seconds a mile, between 4:15 and 4:20, which is the fastest I've ever skied for a race. But there was a lot of time when I was under 4 minutes a mile. I was looking at the pace on my watch and I saw 3:50 per mile, quite a bit. And that is hard to keep balance at that speed and to keep your tempo up and not trip yourself with your poles. Oh, and by the way, another really important element of the race was they started all of the old people in the same block of numbers. So all of the over 40, over 50 people were number 31 and up. So 31 went out, 30 seconds later, 32, 33, 34, I was 35, then 36 to 40 were all the old guys. And I had it in me that I needed to catch all of the old guys in front of me as soon as possible. That was something that my identity very much wanted to do, and I could feel that urge, like I need to very quickly make up the 30-second gap on number 34 in front of me. Number 32, by the way, was 47 years old and a CrossFitter, pretty big, strong, muscular guy. He had illegal wheels. He was using the skis that I started skiing on, the V2 Arrows, with 6-inch wheels that are inflatable and super fast bearings. So the size of the wheel makes it go faster, and also the unrestricted bearings makes it go faster. So when I was training on those original roller skis, I had just started roller skiing in 2021, and a lot of my Strava CRs were set then because those skis are so fast. My technique, my strength, my fitness are so much better now, and I really, really struggle to get close to some of the course records I set on those skis with bad technique and not in the same shape. So he had rockets on his feet, and that kind of bugged me. So I think that's part of what drew me out. He was number 32, so he was a minute and a half ahead of me, and my identity really wanted to make up that gap as quickly as possible. Let's catch him and punish him for using illegal fast wheels. Everybody else had number 2 slow wheels and the regular size, not the big inflatable. He was the only one with those. So anyway, I went out pretty strong, and I did make up the gap on number 34 within maybe 2 kilometers, and then reeled in 33, maybe another 2 kilometers later. But number 32, he kept his distance because there were lots of out and back switchbacks where you go around a cone and come back on the same road, which slowed us down a lot. So my overall pace, had I not had to do that, everybody, had we not had to stop and go around the cones, we would have been skiing much faster. So my pace probably would have been 4:10 is my guess, because we had 6 of those ski around the cone, and you have to pretty much come to a near stop to do that. Anyway, every time he had gone around a cone and saw me coming, I could see him put the hammer down and speed up. So he kept his distance and ended up beating me by like 18 seconds, I think. So my identity did not like that at all, that a 47-year-old man has a faster time in the results than I do. He finished 6th overall, I finished 8th overall, with quite a few college and top high school skiers there. I was right in the mix, 3 minutes and 20 seconds behind the winner. I think 2 minutes and change behind a really solid college skier who's top, say, 10-15 at some of the carnivals. So he's definitely a good metric. I've improved a lot. The one big data point is that my legs were absolutely spent after the race. They burned, they hurt. It felt like a marathon effort for my legs, like they were a wreck. My upper body never got tired. So my strength and my endurance on top and my technique is solid. That is no longer the weak link. When I started skiing in 2021, my upper body was definitely the weak link. My arms and back would be exhausted after 100 meters of skiing, and I would have to take a break and just use my legs for a bit. Now it's the opposite. So if that's good data, I've got to start working on the legs, get those stronger and more resilient. Also, because there were no big hills on this course, there was no rest. It was all out the entire time. And you could say, well, that's like running. There is no rest in running. You still have to run down the hills. But in skiing, you're putting in a lot more muscular effort than you do running. And when there is a little bit of a climb, your heart rate gets higher than it does in running. In fact, my heart rate got close to 175 today. I think I am at 174 or 175, which I haven't done in a running race in maybe a decade, which is also fascinating because I don't do any interval, threshold, or tempo training. All of my training is at a pretty low heart rate. The majority of my training is below a heart rate of 110. So to be able to be in the high 160s and mid 170s in a race is really fascinating to me considering my training. So good testament to my experimental, gentle approach. And yeah, the lack of rest. You ski up a small uphill and you're pretty smoked because you're moving fast and hard. And then you crest the hill and you don't rest. You have to keep skiing. Maybe you don't use your poles, but you're definitely using your legs full out, like a speed skater would. You tuck your poles under your arms and you just get low and speed skate with your legs. But there was no point in the race where you could take a break. So unlike running, you're using a lot more muscular energy. So my legs were shot. But I think a lot of that had to do with the biggest data point of the day, which is don't ski inside of identity. Me trying to catch the racers in front of me as quickly as possible because my identity needed to show dominance. It really did. It's fascinating. I don't do that in running. I'm so gentle and calm and collected in running, but in skiing, maybe because it's more muscular, you just feel more aggressive. You're putting more effort. You're really pushing hard with arms and legs. I think that aggression really brings out my identity, and I needed to catch those guys and to show them who's boss. It's so strange because that's so not who I am. Anyway, I think I spent myself early in the race. It was 2 laps, by the way, and my second lap was maybe 35 to 40 seconds slower than the first lap. So big drop in pace, and it's likely because I just went out way too hard. So the lesson is not to start slower. The lesson is to make sure identity isn't in the driver's seat, because whenever it is, I forget everything that I've learned. It's so interesting how that happens. You just become a different person, or a different version of yourself. So for me, demonstrating dominance, or at least for my identity, isn't about feeling dominant. It's about being afraid. It's about the fear that someone is going to discover that you don't measure up. They're going to discover that you're somehow defective and deficient, and they're not going to accept you into the group. The only way that you will be accepted into the group, or me, my identity, believes, is if I win. Then people will like me. Then I will be enough. I have to be the winner in order to be enough. So I can't let that guy be the one who races, because he does a lot of damage to me, and he doesn't make friends. So anyway, I'm gonna get back on the road, and hopefully it stays overcast, because this is a nice reprieve from the sun. All right.